Hello everybody and welcome to our morning session. So this is our last day and I just go a little bit through what we have today. So I have forgotten my booklet. Booklet is there on that table, isn't it? Yeah. No, it's not that. But anyway, I tried to find us somewhere, our program. And so now, isn't it amazing? The week is ending. This is the last day. Who has the okay, I found. So we are today talking also about the 7th ray in relationship to the group. And then we are contemplating our role with the new group of observers. And Michael is going to give some examples of those known members of the group, work group. And then in the evening, we actually have two things like closing ceremonies. We have the ceremony here in Finland, which is starting 6:10 p.m. GMT. And then the other one is starting 8 p.m. GMT, which is sent now either from Jerusalem or from New York. I'm not quite sure how this is going to happen, and that is going to be continuation of this global silent circle. And we are going to do this World Map candle ceremony. So we invite all of you to come along. And if you want your group to be mentioned, please send your note to Michael. So we will add in that moment when we connect ourselves consciously with those groups. So then if you have sent the name of your group, we will also name your group in that ceremony. The group is the others than those what we are naming. So because, you know, there can be, you know, the people who are now listening us, maybe they belong to some group and they can send the name of their group or associations. And then we name also then when we are doing the candle ceremony. So because this whole week is about emphasizing the unity between the groups over the borders, and also that we will continue in our consciousness to be stronger aligned with each other. And also that the coming years would be very active over the borders, that we will maybe create some kind of activities together. We have there in Phoenix our conference, which is about that all people here and there come together and we create the conference. But the same idea that we are supposed to just link more strongly with each other. Also, because this is now the last day, that we have time to reflect. The week has been very active and strong. So we have to give time for that, what kinds of impressions are born in our minds now, and also the new insights, maybe what you have got, that you develop it, you stay with it, that it will get power and strength to start to move in your life and start to manifest in your life. So that's why we start. Do you want to add something, Michael?
I think this is a day of summary. And I think some of the groups have already worked up until the 28th. And we're working on the 28th. And hopefully we'll get your own impressions of what all of this means to you in your service as a member of the new group or a potential member of the new group. You know, not lengthy explanations about your life, but just the essence of the matter of what you learned and what you can apply. So we have that in the afternoon. And I'm not sure, Tuya, do you want to, are you talking about reflection now or later?
Also, a little bit
A
now.
little now, and then we'll talk about, excuse me, the contrast between the seventh ray and the sixth ray as found in the destiny of the nations. And then we'll get into the more individual material in the afternoon. And then by the time evening comes around, we'll really wrap it up in a larger way. We're very grateful for your attendance. A lot of you have been here very faithfully, you know, whatever the hour may be. It's been demanding on us and demanding on you, but we think that there's been a wonderful connection between groups here in this new group of World Servers Festival interplay. And we're very happy about that. It's quite different even from 7 years ago. Far more isolated then, you know. And now there's a real connection between world groups via the net, and I don't see why that will be discontinued. So we'll do our best to make it both individual and universal today in our summary day.
It's happening at 3:46 a.m.
No problem.
And it is very much related to your chart, Michael. It's a 7-degree Aries rising.
That's all right. We'll a little later we'll discuss this Waysack crush.
I'm just mentioning this when you make your program there because you know May 7 is
okay,
there
we'll.
are other things happening. So if I forget, I just wanted to remind you of this.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Now Tuya has some then little reflection that she'll lead us through. Is that correct, dear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Let us all now center ourselves. And again, we can imagine the constellation of Capricorn above us. We are aware of these energies pouring through Capricorn, reaching our solar system. And remember that there is now this comet going through. The comet is said by decay. It is that I don't remember what it decay, but it is they are messengers. So something new also in that manifestation is on. The energy is reaching Saturn, and via Saturn, these energies are pouring into our little planet. And be sensitive and see that this energies now should be affecting this group. That's why this time is called the Festival Week of the new group of World Servers. And this happens every 7 years. We have 1 minute silence, strengthening the world group around the globe. And can you distinguish the quality of these empowering energies? If you align with that, do you think that you can really distinguish? And we remember that via Capricorn pours in the strongest, the 7th ray. It is very manifesting quality. So something, if we are able to use these energies, will be manifested. Have you been getting some insights that how the plan is working through you? According your insight and vision, that's how it is going to be manifested. The new group of observers is the Ajna center of planetary God. It is the responsibility of this group to envision the way for the rest of the humanity. Let your insight and our insights to blend together. We can do that only via the energies. We try to be very sensitive and blend this world global vision. That the part of that greater vision is our own insight for the work. Recognize your insight and check, is that meant for service? Is that meant for upliftment of your fellow beings? Does it make progress, give a progress to that what already is? Seventh ray is about order. We can again check ourselves. Is our mind at the moment more on the clear side, or is it in chaos? Is it foggy? Because it should now, always during the processes, there comes time when all these energies, different energies, impacts, and they have to be found into beautiful order in our minds, that the mind is organized. So we really hope that now you have landed into a much more clearer state. The head is not heavy anymore. Our environment here in Finland is really having a beautiful symbol for that. Sun is shining. You see, we have a lot of pine trees, so there are pine trees and they have been colored by the sun. The light is shining on the bodies of the trees. We have no clouds. Then we have some snow. Luckily we got, so it is expressing very clear and beautiful image for us. And that's why we use the seventh ray, working within, so that our minds can be organized and illumined. And when we have reached that stage, we can use seventh ray magically. We can use words to define to ourselves the next step, the plan. So let us all remember to use now every second we can, that we are reflecting and we are writing down all these tiny impulses, tiny or bigger insights, ideas. Don't let them pass and to be forgotten. This is magical time of the new group of world servers. all these energies, all these work what we are doing together and the insights are meant for that global plan to be manifested. That is what DK says. The global, worldwide vision has to come. And this is how we work for that, towards that. And very quietly, in unison, we sound great invocation, but quietly. And study now the effect upon the ethers, upon the elementals and devas, because you should be seeing that what it does. From the point of light in the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. Up from the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wings of men, the purpose which the Masters know so. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you.
We need to have that plugged in all the way. There's a lot of noise of the sea behind it. Something's not all the way in. Okay, friends. We have a section. Well, there's so much on the seventh ray, okay? If you were to expand your search, let's see what we would find. Let's see. If I would just spell correctly, 309 references. to the seventh ray. Obviously, we're not going to deal with all of that, and if you check out the Tapestry of the Gods book, you'll find a lot of additional information. The point is, we have to learn how to get along with this ray. There's only one monadic type which does not accord well with the seventh ray monad, and that is the sixth ray monad. And we're right in the middle of that transition. Okay, it's about, we have a lot of references here. So I'm going to focus a little bit on this section of the destiny of the nations, and then we can occasionally ask questions, make comments. If you have comments you want to make, you know how to do it. Just use the question mark, and later you can speak if particularly you want to speak. But I'll pick up your questions and comments as we go. Okay. So hopefully this will do it. And meanwhile, of course, I do want to welcome the 33 or 34 of you that are present. You're pretty regular by this time, so I'm not going to go through the names, but just to say that we are all grateful for your presence. So we begin here with page 26 of the Destiny of the Nations. We have now considered the three major energies that are pouring into our planetary life at this time through three major centers. I suppose it's the first, second, and third ray, or maybe the sixth ray. No, it's not that. It's the first three. Okay, it remains for us now to consider the energy of the two minor rays. These are the transitional rays right now that are causing all of this difficulty at the present time, because we don't seem to know how to negotiate it, how to work with it. The sixth and the seventh rays, which are in many ways of more immediate moment to the masses and of tremendous effectiveness. Your life will be, whether you know it or not, or we know it or not, much affected by these two things. Right now, all of the political turmoil that's going on is pretty much a cross current between the reactionary. The word conservative can be a good word, This depends on what it means. You do want to conserve values which are useful, but you don't want to be reactionary and deliberately set your sights upon rebuilding the past. After the Second World War, there was this big issue: shall all of the old destroyed buildings be rebuilt just the way they were? And the Tibetan came in strongly against that idea as non-progressive. Well, in this respect, the personality per se, although useful, is non-progressive. And soul development, which we are all struggling forward toward, is the progressive aspect. And this has to do with people, and this has to do with nations. So immediate moment, these rays of immediate moment, very quick to precipitate. One is of moment, and you'll be able to tell which, because of its pronounced hold and because of the crystallization it has produced, particularly in the world thought. Now, there's a lot of difference between the fact that the Catholic Church before Reformation was in this way a first-rate soul of Rome, a third-rate manipulative personality, and a rigid sixth-ray mind, and a rigid sixth-ray astral body, and a seventh-ray ritualistic physical body. But there's a lot of difference there between the Buddha with his sixth-ray mind, which was right to the mark and understood the havoc which submission to low desire, sixth-ray, was causing among the people. So basically, the Buddha's approach is saving us from the compulsion of low, rigid desire. And when you read about what he said, it's amazing how absolutely lucid, clear, unambiguous are the Buddha's pronouncements. Some of you didn't really write. The great ones don't write a lot. We don't have Jesus writing. We don't have Christ writing. Others take it down. We don't have the Buddha writing. Others take it down. Clarity itself. I'm always amazed when I read what he said and how he said it. That sixth-ray mind, getting to the heart of an understanding of what desire really is, and understanding what true idealism really is, and understanding how to achieve the sixth initiation, which he did in a mental way. That is having to do with the cosmic mental plane. That's where the Buddhist enlightenment really came from. Not from anything lower, which would be still high enough in a way for people like ourselves. Okay, so one has to do with this hold, this crystallization in the world of thought. And the other, because its hold and its power, its influence, its effects will be of an increasing momentum. The seventh ray can be rigid too, but the new seventh ray is extremely adaptable, bringing heaven to earth in a very intelligent way. And you have to decide, you could be a theosophical fundamentalist. D.K. warns about that. He says, you think, okay, you're not in the normal religious sense a fundamentalist, but you could be with regard to theosophy and the old method of interpretation, insisting on these principles only, throwing Alice Bailey out with bathwater, and let's see if we do it again. Tibetan will write again, and we'll say, I'm sorry, we're Alice Baileyites. We don't go with this stuff. Okay. One is potent in producing the necessity for the present chaos. Why? We've got to break it all up because its hold on humanity is like a stranglehold. You just have to go into the United States Congress or Senate in its Gemini personality to see the 6 and the 7 against each other. And the other, the 7th ray, is potential and holds in its activity the seeds of the future. Now, really, we don't have a complete idea of what will be appearing. But we do know one thing. The mysteries of the kingdom of God will be externalizing. And Master R will be right out there on the physical plane making sure that happens. Now that's a big deal. And the Christ will be giving at least the first initiation in a public way. And the second initiation will be much more handy. In other words, these inner rituals, this being the ray of ritual, will appear on the physical plane and will become part of the consciousness of millions and millions of people. Now, about the Christ, it said, every eye shall see him. But DK also hints that not every eye shall recognize him. Okay. We want to be among those who say, okay, recognize, without being foolish. The Christ is running around East London waiting for the press to discover him. Come on. Are we supposed to buy that? And then the group produces the Christ who wears a turban, okay, that's right. But you look in his eyes, totally flat, nothing there. People are so anxious to have immediately what they haven't earned. So we want to be alert for when the real thing happens. Okay. Now, this is about, I'll go a little more here. This is a fact of great interest and of really practical import. It takes us, moreover, into the realm of prevision. And this prevision will operate in relation to the next 3 centuries. Look, think back to the year, think back 2,000 years, 2,020 years, 2,040 years. It seems like a long time, does it not? How many lives have we had? How many incarnations have we had over that time? The Aquarian age, though a small age, and not 25,000 years, like a large age of Aquarius, is still a long time. And we will have quite a number of incarnations. And we'll still have to struggle for the incoming of the proper Aquarian age the way it's meant to come in. So this is a big undertaking to bring in the new age, cultivate the new age the way it should be cultivated. And it's the responsibility of all of us to do that. The next 3 centuries. And there are several ways in which the provision will come about through the development of soul contacts among the advanced members of the race. should be you and I and those who are saying we have to be earnestly meditating, earnestly serving, earnestly. The contact will relate to soul knowledge with brain impression. That's really important. Soul, mind, brain, get the astral body out of the way so it doesn't cause a disruption. And if the mediating factor of the mind, in comes decay, is duly trained and controlled, there will be correct knowledge of individual destiny and coming events. Now, this is all going to be developed, including the great science of astrology, the oldest and greatest of all the sciences. But it's such an Aquarian thing. So we're on the cusp of tremendous development in the field of astrology. The prevision will come to us. By the way, a lot of psychic people are on the seventh ray soul. They're considered natural psychics. They have something about the soul of matter built into them, and they just naturally see. So that's something to think about. I think more so than the sixth ray types, even though you think of the seventh ray being quite a materialistic ray. The point is, seventh ray is heaven to earth, and sixth ray is just heaven. You know, why do you kick the earth like a ball? Is it such a poor, petty thing? Why don't you love the earth, in other words? Get me out of here. Take me to paradise. Take me to heaven.
Yes, exactly. Quickly.
Try not to make me laugh. It's a little painful.
No, honestly, would that not be wonderful?
To go to heaven?
Today, quickly.
Well, you know, then you'd have a seventh ray attack, and the seventh ray would say, yeah, but what about Earth?
Yes, absolutely.
And once the sixth ray leaves, it doesn't care. Just imagine the fallacy of thinking you're going to spend the rest of your eternal life in paradise or heaven in the form you are in. Although, you know, they say that plastic surgery is very good in heaven. I mean, you know, your old rotting body is going to rise out of the earth, and then maybe something will happen to it. You get a little more energy, and you're going to be like that forever. Now that's a... Do you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the vow of the Bodhisattva, which is about that the Bodhisattva cannot rest if anyone is left behind. So Bodhisattva will always return as long then everybody is saved.
But now you turn off. That's not a sixth ray vow necessarily.
No.
It's a great second ray.
I'm sorry, I just meant the vow. I didn't think about the rays. The great second ray, which is about saving all.
Heaven and earth, it's all the same thing. Everything is the same thing. All the different planes, all the different subplanes, it's all the same thing. And we have to be able to come and go at will. And this is where occult training comes into the act. All right, let me go on. Here's the science of astrology. It's a science that is still in its infancy, even though it's the greatest and oldest of all the sciences. And it's based on so many uncertain factors that it is difficult for a student to arrive at those true indications which will truly present the future. But the masters, of course, they have their own method and they can do it. Character indications and small personal happenings can frequently and correctly be deduced, but the general subject remains until today much too nebulous, cloudy, for certainty. I will later deal with this matter and will indicate the lines along which future investigation should proceed. He's already planned his astrology book, and this is long before he's written it. And then, yes, Elena?
Well, it will definitely involve Sagittarius in this process of looking ahead in the future. There's a very strong Sagittarian energy in this predictive
Good.
element. So,
I just want to make sure, can Elena be heard? Do you know? Is she picking up?
She's not picking up really well. He asked if you unmute me.
I'm not hearing her here at all.
She should, right, you should unmute me and she should repeat herself.
Yeah. Michael, unmute her, Pamela, and Pamela will use her computer. So actually, unmute her the way that you can control them.
Let's see what can be done. We have to get all this straightened out. So Pamela is unmuted.
can I repeat? You want me to repeat?
Yes, repeat what you just said.
Okay. In relation to the astrology and the foresight for the future, looking ahead, the Sagittarian energy would be powerful, particularly for those nations who have Sagittarius, as a soul energy.
I want to say that DK gives Sagittarius as particularly connected with the first and second initiations, which are going to be the popular ones now. Still, we have to wait till we get into the age of Capricorn before we really get a lot of third degree initiates, I think. But with Sagittarius, we're going to have many initiates of the first degree and quite a few of the second degree. And then, of course, you go to the different countries that are ruled by these signs, especially in their soul nature, and you'll see who will be affected and in what way. Okay, now we're going to have also in the coming years the recurrence of soothsaying. You know what sooth means? Sooth, truth saying. The reappearance of those ancient, quote, informers of the race, who in Roman time were called sibyls. So again, we're going to have the oracular line come out, and they, heaven to earth, the seventh ray. They'll use that. These mediums, for such they were, will be trained by the workers upon the seventh ray to speak under the inspiration from the hierarchy. Very interesting. Whose knowledge ahead, whose foreknowledge extends far ahead into the future. Hierarchy sees way ahead, and these symbols will convey what can be conveyed from what hierarchy sees. We don't have that much at all now, but back in more ancient times we did. Okay. but it does not yet extend beyond 2,000 years. So the entire age of Aquarius is in the foreknowledge of the hierarchy, but not into the age of Capricorn. Not yet. Well, that's still plenty, isn't it? If you have these centuries and we're given a sense of what the next step may be, this will help to guide us. This is all coming in under the seventh ray. These mediums, and by the way, what signs of the zodiac are particularly connected with mediumship, especially if you have those signs together?
Cancer and Pisces.
That's correct. Cancer and Pisces. And if you want to be a conscious medium, Virgo, meaning instead of just kind of, not knowing what you're going to say, an intelligent medium, Virgo. Okay, so these mediums will, however, only be used under direction after careful training and only twice a year at the May and June full moon. Very bright area of the sky, right? Taurus, Gemini, a bright area of the sky. The light will shine even now when we celebrate Wesak and the Christ Festival. We have to be aware of the possibility of illumination for the future. Okay. Now let's see if I can I don't want to read everything. I would ask you, therefore, to read what I have to say with an open mind. I would beg you to relate my words to present world conditions and to see emerging from the realms of subjectivity those forces and potencies which are directly changing the current of men's thoughts. And that's the whole thing. The seventh ray is as subjective as it is objective. It's both, not just external. It is the great manifester. But where does the manifesting come from? The causal levels on the inner side of life, which the seventh ray can touch. Now, like I say, Master DK teaches mainly second ray and first ray types. And even the first ray types are really monadically probably second ray types under most circumstances. Their soul ray or their monadic ray is ray 2. These other groups will form, and they will be different. I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of seventh ray groups. It's quite a different vibe than what we're used to. Now, going on. What will all this do when the forces and potencies emerge? It will mold the ideas of human beings and incidentally alter the face of the earth and the policies of nations. Big changes. Look, already, what is the planet that is particularly associated with migration? Uranus. Uranus is the great migrator. I worked this out with Charles Jane a long time ago, 40 years ago, and he said, yeah, watch the big movements of people. It's Uranus, the seventh ray planet. What's going on in the world today? Huge migrations because of sixth ray Martian circumstances. Parts of our planet are becoming unlivable. Tuija, you want to speak?
Yeah, it is to that point when Mary and Joseph were fleeing from Jerusalem, Bethlehem, to Egypt with Christ. So this great immigration, when the movements are happening upon the earth, there are those impulses within, and it is this Manu's activity, and also how the so-called circumstances, which are manifesting as circumstances, are moving people. But the impulse is about that, the fleeing Christ.
And we have to say that Herod is raging. See, back in Jerusalem in those days, Herod, afraid for his life, afraid for his monarchy, for his kingship, is in a rage and wants to kill all the newborn children. Well, who's Herod today? See, in other words, let's look at the analogies on a group level today. Who is John the Baptist? Who is Herod? Who are the three kings? Because Christ is getting ready, in a way, through the first initiation, to be born again in the consciousness of millions. Who are the three kings? Who is raging Herod? Who is John the Baptist? We have to work this out, and in some ways it might not be so difficult. And of course, the question is, does it end up the same way as it ended up before? They were saved because it was guided, and they were warned in a dream, and Egypt, a place of great ritualism and all that, out of the way, right? That's not the Egypt of today, of course. Egypt is something different. Going on. As you know, there are at this time, two minor rays, which are rays of attribute, the lower four, affecting powerfully the destiny of mankind. These are the sixth ray of abstract devotion or idealism, and also, I must say, of concrete devotion too, also, and the seventh ray of ceremonial magic or organization. Look, we're right on the crest of that wave. At least we know what's coming in. There's a lot of people who may be seventh ray souls. They're going to adjust the financial situation of the world. They are initiates of the first degree already. They're going to make sure that there is equal and right distribution of the things by which human beings live, the necessities of life, but they don't know the occultism of it. But still they're doing and will do a great job. And we have to help them know who they are. And that's what hierarchy is trying to do these days, to waken people up to who they are, really, so they can function even better. Now, okay, so if you want to know where to go for some of the, here I'll show you, and then if I open this, and I can only leave so many open at the same time. If I go to page 26, this is where he gives all of the coming and going. He tells you which rays are in manifestation and which rays came in when. There's only 4 right now. You turn to that page. That's your page for knowing when certain cycles began. For instance, a 500-year cycle began in 1575 on the second ray. A 900-year cycle began at that critical Renaissance conclave in 1425. It will be over in 2325. Ray 4 is coming in its monomatic aspect. Let's say a 350-year cycle began in 1775, and that means that in the year 20, is that correct? 2125 at the conclave, the 5th ray will climax. And then ray 7, I always like to think 2 great 7th ray composers, Bach and Handel. So they were both born in the same year. And Bach died in 1750 and Handel died in 1759. And they both had this tremendous 7th ray structure in their music. They came in with that 7th ray cycle. So turn to that page. That's a really important one, and review it. The 6th ray, and he doesn't tell you how long it's been in manifestation. As a matter of fact, there's still 21,000 years, think of that, 21,000, of a major 6th ray cycle yet to run. And that major 6th ray cycle is part of a still greater 4th ray cycle, which lasts 40 or 44,000 years. So you can understand why we don't know anything. A master up there with all knowledge knows all these things. And these big things are coming and going. And when they overlap, things happen. But we don't know what time it is. Literally. But a few hints have been given. What they're... Okay, it's a joke. Yeah. Imagine a 4th ray cycle of, it's a big hint, some 40 or 45, 44,000 years. Amazing. Usually the number is 250 or 2500. All these numbers are running around, intersecting, and causing combinations which the hierarchy knows how to use. And we're just the victims. Oh, have you noticed something seems to be happening? Yeah, something's happening. But the hierarchy knows what is happening. Okay, so the 6th ray begins to pass out in 1625 after a long period of influence. The hint is in the word long. Whilst the 7th ray of ceremonial order began to come into manifestation in 1675. There are all these different ray cycles. Some are human, some are planetary, some are the whole planet, some are solar systemic, and we don't know which ones. There are 3 points to be remembered in connection with these two rays and the effect upon the race of men. And I'm not here dealing with their effects upon the other kingdoms of nature, which also have to be calculated. Is the ageless wisdom just too much? Would you rather not have to learn it all? What do you think? There's a lot of info here, isn't there? But of course, if you're willing to study for a couple, 3,000 years, you can get there. I'm sure that's what's the story with Master DK. Okay, now let's look at the ways in which these two rays affect the race of men. The sixth ray, first, as you know, the most powerful in manifestation in this time, it's 100 years ago, roughly, 80 something, and a very large number of people are responsive to its influence. People are not too evolved, and there's an awful lot of six-ray souls allowed, and they're going to go out of incarnation, and they're going to want to take you with them. So we have to watch that. It is still the line of least resistance for the majority, particularly in the Aryan race, for the reason that when in process of time and through evolution, the influence of a ray has become potent, it is groups that are primarily affected and not just individuals. We have a lot of groups still much affected by sixth ray, and they are reactionary. A rhythm and a momentum is then set up, which lasts a long time, and which gains power through the very force of organized members. You know, the power of the church, of the fundamentalist church, the evangelical church in the United States would lead the whole world into war so that it could be proven that Armageddon is real. It's very dangerous. Whereas DK and Moria tell us a major part of Armageddon already took place, which was the Second World War. The truth will emerge more clearly as we proceed with our studies. Suffice it to say that sixth-ray people are the reactionaries, the conservatives, not as bad as reactionary, the diehards, and the fanatics. Do you know any people like that? Or are you yourself like that? I always have to look in the mirror, you know. Many of my friends have called me the fanatic, but certainly not my wife. She knows better than to call a fanatic a fanatic. Okay. The diehards, the fanatics, who hold on to all that is of the past and whose influence is potent to hinder the progress of humanity into the new age. Think of that, and the forces of obstruction. Anything's fine as long as you don't try to make progress. And give us back all of our old bombed out buildings. Okay? Their name is Legion, huge name, huge number. They provide, however, now here's the way hierarchy works. They provide, however, a needed balance and are responsible for a steadying process, which is much needed in the world at this time. Otherwise, you just race ahead into a state of instability. So the fourth ray balance between the fanatics and the progressives on the seventh ray is needed. And we have to say, oh, if only we didn't have the reactionaries. And the reactionaries are saying, oh, if only we didn't have the socialists, the communists, the people who want to share everything, if only we didn't have them. And each has just a narrow point of view. Okay, a little more. Now the seventh ray, in contrast to what has just been said. The seventh ray is steadily gaining momentum and has for a long time been stimulating and enhancing the activity of all fifth ray nations. Intelligent, luminous, concrete mind. I would say Switzerland, even though it's not given. Austria, definitely. France, definitely. You know, there are a number of strong fifth ray nations, and 7 and 5 always work together. Do you know a planet that has a lot of 7 and 5 in it at the same time? Yeah, electrical Uranus. When you have a lot of 7 and 5 together, you can be a good electrician. Okay, so that might tell you something, Ariel. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if you bear in mind that one of the major objectives of the seventh ray energy is to bring together and to relate spirit and matter, think about that, that's the definition, and also substance and form. Notice the difference. Form is different from matter, isn't it? Because out of the tiny material units, you geometrically build form. It's different. Okay. So, you can see for yourself that the work of science is closely connected with this endeavor, and that the creation of the new forms, they're coming, the new archetypes, or the descending of the real archetypes, the new forms will definitely be the result of a working interaction between the rulers of the fifth, the second, and the seventh rays. Do you suppose Master Hilarion and Master R work together a bit? I would say so. And then get the right second ray master in there. And see, look, DK said, the mental magicians are coming. But you who study white magic have to offset their influence. Because if you just put 5 and 7 together, I was just reading today, they're making a hybrid out of a pig and a monkey. Disgusting, isn't it? We're playing God, we're interfering with the shape of creation. And there was a movie that came out about that. I didn't really see it. It was a human and a cat. It was called Splice. And, it was pretty scary kind of thing. And it's a bit like old Atlantis. Make a slave race. They don't have any mind, whatever. They'll do whatever you say, like that. Now you were going to say, Pam, hold on, I've got to put you on. I'm sorry.
A lot of the seventh and fifth ray manifestation of new form is already here. Because while the seventh ray, we talk about ceremonial magic, in many ways, the way computer programs work, how software is created. It's a little bit of things. Someone creates a little app and it grows and grows and it manifests and it does things that people never, the original designers, never thought it would. In a way, this is a lot of structural manifestation, structural, almost I think of it like ceremonial magic. Maybe that's why so many, they use the term techno-pagans, why so many people within the computer industry are drawn to paganism or other sort of new forms of spirituality.
Yeah. Techno-paganism, you got to turn it, yeah. Techno-paganism is an amazing word. And obviously, the whole area of computer programming lends itself to the combination of the fifth and seventh ray. But not only because there are the other planes in which these things will be evolved. So let's just say that when France gets into the act of scientifically discovering the manifesting soul, this will be still a new application. We're told that the first scientific project of the scientific servers will be the proving, fifth ray, of reincarnation, seventh ray. I think that's very interesting. What a difference this is going to make when people realize, hey, wait a second, I'm going to be here. It's just called enlightened self-interest, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It starts that way, to at least make sure there's a world to return to. Okay. Okay, very good. Did you have another thing?
No.
No. Okay. So anyway, let me get into this. Now, note to distinction. Okay, so that was, you're in that field, that's a good point. You can see for yourself that the work of science is closely connected with this endeavor, and that the creation of new forms, fifth, second, and seventh ray, aided by the help, on demand, when needed, and not all the time, of the ruler of the first ray. One of the names of the first ray is the power that touches and withdraws, like this. Now, you can only imagine what would happen if that power keeps its finger on the locale.
Michael, it's Zen teaching.
It's quick.
Yeah, Zen teaching. Did you hear?
Teaching.
Zen teaching. The master Zen, or the master in Zen tradition, has the stick for sleeping disciples. Yeah, touches, the power which touches and withdraws.
This is
I am not doing that to you, but this is the Zen.
Yeah, this is Zen, and it's reminding. It's a very Vulcan type of spiritual path. There's you, there's the master, and there's the stick. And when you're thinking too much and you're caught in some kind of loop, or maybe asleep, which is the same thing, the master hits you with the stick to help wake you up. I think, don't you think future classes
Should be, yes. The students should carry them, also teach.
I think, I can just see everybody surrounding my desk going like this. Okay. So a large number of seventh-ray egos, i.e. souls, right? And also of men and women with seventh-ray personalities. See, remember, suppose you're in Russia and it has rays 7 and 6. What does that really mean? It means, in my that a large number of seventh-ray souls and a large number of sixth-ray souls are to be found in that country. And the sixth-ray souls are providing the personality of the country among the human beings, and the seventh-ray souls represent the soul nature among the human beings in that country. It's not just to say that every sixth-ray type is personality. No. Russia has this huge religious impulse. And what did he say? The New World religion comes out of Russia. Combination of the 7 and 6. So we're, in a way, we're taught, yeah, and new forms of education as well. And of course, Finland is very interestingly situated because it's between the preparatory school in Sweden and the advanced school in Russia. It's anti-Corona. Tuya will be known as anti-Corona. Okay, well, but really, we do have a function in this country to help bridge the Swedish approach and the Russian approach. A large number of seventh-ray egos and men and women with seventh-ray personalities. See, in the methods of service that I started to talk about the other day, in the beginning, you enter as a personality, and you're taught by a fourth-ray ego, if you're a fourth-ray personality. All those fifth-ray personalities are taught by a fifth-ray ego. That's how it works. The souls teach the personalities. I know that that's how it works in my life. I have a fourth-ray personality, and in the beginning, I was taught by a bunch of heavily fourth-ray German and Austrian musicians, of whom it might be said the fourth ray is predominant in them. Then when I decided to leave that aspect of life behind somewhat, although not entirely, I began to be taught by second-ray types. See, because the soul nature came in and the fourth ray was no longer the object, you see. But for 20, 30 years of my life, it was all on the fourth ray, you see. Okay. So seventh ray personalities. And to them, all these seventh ray types is committed the task of organizing the activities of the new era and of ending the old methods of life and the old crystallized attitudes to life and death, to leisure, and to the population. You have to think about everyone. Now, you probably have noticed that Joanna has a pretty strong seventh ray. And not too many hours ago, she threatened to stay here and straighten us out. And I dare say it could happen. You would find an ally in Tuya. Yes, and then I would be the enemy. But people have just a natural movement pattern in their thought and in the way their body moves and what they do and what they think is important, and it's just a pattern. And some people are born under that and with that. So it's very strong for you. And one sees it. One sees it. Okay, now the next thing is, let's see, there's a place where he just, okay, now the result of the increasing flow of seventh ray energy plus the decreasing influence of the sixth ray, which shows itself as a pronounced crystallization of the standardized and accepted forms of belief, religious, social, and philosophic, is to throw millions of people who do not respond to either of the above influences through egoic or personality relation into a state of bewilderment, confusion. They don't know where they stand. They feel entirely lost, are gripped by the idea that life holds for them no desirable future. All that they have learned to cherish and hold dear is rapidly failing. So the diehards, the progressives, and the disoriented. And that's what we have. That's what we have today. Okay. Now I know I don't have a whole lot of time. I think that told me I don't have a whole lot of time.
I know, O Lord of life and life, about the need. Touch my heart anew with love, that I too may love and give. 1 minute silence.
Much more than yesterday. It's just filled with that ocean sound. So we don't know why that is now, but maybe you will know. Now here's that really interesting thing where it tells that Hercules had a first-ray soul and a second-ray personality and a sixth-ray astral body. The Buddha had a second-ray soul, a first-ray personality, and a sixth-ray mind. It's always this combination of the 1, 2, and 6, right? And the Christ had a second-ray soul, a sixth-ray personality, and a first-ray mind. Right here is a very extensive area in which the sixth and the seventh rays are contrasted. And let's see if I can consider together, and I'm obviously, there's no time to do this. However, go into the destiny of the nation and find these areas. You can see the contrast of the two rays and how we are to function in the new age and relinquish the rigidity, fixation, the old bad way of the sixth ray, because toward the end of the ray cycle, and we are there with regard to the sixth ray, a lot of the negativities of the ray come up. Okay, now, so since I really don't have time to, although I want to, I really don't have time to read extensively here. What I would like to do is to offer the opportunity to the attendees to ask, to state, to offer what they may have gotten from this, or what they think is important, or whether they feel still affected by the sixth ray. When you are still affected by an old ray, DK says you are swept by that ray. It's like a current that comes through and disappears. You're not a diehard, you're not a fanatic, but some old tendency sweeps through, and for some time you're motivated by old goals. I felt that in my life many times. I have some kind of militaristic background, and it was a funny thing, you know. I got my kids, or they got into or something, into the Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts or whatever, and I was organizing meetings, and I felt this militaristic thing sweep through. I said, "What is this? You know, this is like the army, you know." And so some ancient or not so ancient sixth ray tendencies for someone who's been on a 6 ray for a long time, swept through. But I didn't stick with it, you know. But I know that the fanatic is only that much beneath the surface, even though one cultivates a different ray. Now look at Mr. ISGL. His name was Eugene Cosgrove, and get a load of these rays. First ray monad, first ray soul, sixth ray, first ray monad, sixth ray soul, first ray personality, first ray mind, sixth ray astral body, first ray physical body. His only hope was to cultivate the second ray, which DK is basically saying, I'm seeing you on the second ray. That's where you belong. He was a psychologist. He was many things, and an ashramic leader, and very, you didn't. I talked in Asheville, North Carolina. He had an ashram. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Was he part of the school for esoteric studies?
He was before, but in that, he was part of it, but he related. And I said, well, what about Eugene Cosgrove and his old 92-year-old student that I was talking to? Oh, first ray. She said, I said, okay. Because I didn't realize until later that DK was having him write this book on Shambhala to bring out his latent first ray tendencies rather than his sixth ray tendencies, and would help him switch on to the larger second ray. And he says nobody has the capacity to suffer like you do. It's very interesting. All that 6 and 1, he was really felt very bad about himself in many ways. He had the and rising sign as Alice Bailey, Sun in Gemini, and Leo rising. And like so many of those people, he had the moon in Taurus, which is good or bad. Depending on how you use it. So I would just recommend to everybody, you go into your Dinah, not Dinah, but Destiny book, and you find all the places where he is contrasting the 6th and the 7th ray, and it comes near the beginning of the book. And it's pretty much what I've shown you here is starting on page 26, where we were starting. No time to do it. Okay, now let's open the floor. And would anybody like to say anything about the influence of these rays in your own life? In other words, look, it's not that you have to have a 7th ray this and a 6th ray that. You're just with one current, or you're with another, or you stand confused in the center. Anybody like to say anything? Here, first we'll do this in this room, and then I'll turn it over to the attendees. We have some 30 attendees. So now, is that, Pam, I turn it on so Joanna can be heard. individual case. But now you've been hearing very sixth and seventh ray, wasn't it? It was very regular, everything's square, you know, it's very Martian, it's very seventh ray, and of course it's all patriotic, right? But if you listen to The Rite of Spring, the ballet by Stravinsky, you will hear some real seventh ray music. That's really, and it's like paganism. Absolutely. There was a Russian film, very long. It was called, it was about a famous icon painter. And it was called something like Andrei Rublev. Rublev. And it showed paganism in the 1400s or 1300s, running through the woods, carrying the torches on all of these pagan days, basically big sexual festivals and all that kind of thing. It demonstrated what the seventh ray can be, sex and magic on one level. It is a fantastic movie. And you become really happy you don't live under a czar. No matter how many old czars are hanging around waiting to be czars again. Yeah.
Yes.
About 2 months ago, I saw a fantastic ballet of The Rite of Spring by a Chinese choreographer, Yang Pi Li, I think, and that she has elevated that paganism into a very sophisticated but yet totally passionate presentation that was just brilliant, with totally new movement of form bringing out the light through that. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that along that line with, following on paganism and the fifth and the seventh ray, a lot of the neo-pagan movement in the United States actually comes out of the Church of All Worlds, which was a science fiction Robert Heinlein book. So, but I think that there's so much creativity happening in some of these reconstructed religions that it kind of borders the sixth, seventh ray thing. I'm sorry, did I talk over you? I didn't need to. I didn't do it. Sorry.
I just turned that down. If you go to the Burning Man Festival out there in the desert, the neo-paganism is really there. Now, the sixth ray is peculiar. It hates everything around it. It hates number 7 and it hates number 5. It used to hate number 5 when the Earth was the center of the universe, and it hated number 5 when the sun was the center of the universe and was demoted to just a star somewhere. Now that was the real antagonism of removing geocentrism and heliocentrism from the thoughts of humanity, because that would challenge the old scripture. And then along come all these magicians who actually get something done, and the church hated them too, even though it became very ritualistic in its own way. It likes Ray 4 pretty well, religious art. It likes Ray 3 pretty well, theology, and Ray 5, theology. It doesn't like Ray 2, too broad. And Ray 1 is fine because you can enforce your prejudices, 1 and 6 together. Are we still faced with this? We're faced with a lot of people who would like to see a return to it. Have you heard of the flat earthers? They believe the earth is flat. And they have all these proofs that the earth is really flat. And I don't know if you walk around underneath upside down or what you do. We never got to the moon, never. It's all a conspiracy. Astronomers are showing spherical bodies up there. They're not really, they're just flat. I mean, the human mind is capable of incredible distortions. And you think we're done with that? They're back. We're not done with it. And the Nazis are back. And the fascists are back. And we have to offer you the next 5 years of dealing with them. And maybe more. And maybe more. So you look at this together. Now, anybody else have anything you want to say? Yeah, Tuya, I'm going to turn myself off.
So how do I speak now? Because is it okay? No? I'm just thinking I certainly have a 6th-ray astral nature, and then my physical is on 7th ray. Also, I have very strong 7th ray in me, thinking about that how the energies are moving. So I have started my earthly career on the 7th ray in my soul, which has been moving to the 1st ray. So I still think with 7th ray. So if I have chaos around me, it's a huge challenge. I have to always clean before I go to do food, or if I go to do anything, I must clean and put things in order. So in that sense, it is so strong in me that, which one is playing then 1st ray and 7th ray? And Michael knows that this is really true. But then I'm thinking about these 2 rays working together. What is the challenge of the 6th ray? Because it is very strong ray, but it collapses easily. When the dreams are gone, the ideal is gone, then it can just turn in a split second the back. So the 7th ray is not like that. 7th ray continues, rhythmically repeats, banging the rhythm. So in that sense, in the work as well, what I have been seeing, it's a really painful thing in the group life, the 6th ray, because you cannot hold these people if they are responding any of these personal level to the 6th ray, that they can be just gone tomorrow. Today they come, oh my God, I have come to home. I love this. Oh, this is exactly what I have been searching for. And then tomorrow, it didn't matter anything. And in the crew work, it is really difficult. in humanity as well. And this blindness, it is interesting to study it, that what really happens in the psyche of the people, that when this gray energy is pouring or affecting, that's how it just can do that, because it doesn't make sense when you think about it. So even though I want to be fair with all of the race, because sometimes it bothers me that it is expressed that the sixth race is the only bad guy and all the others are good, because it's not true either. So there is something very, very amazing. Oh yes, that quality that I wanted to share, that this quality of the sixth ray, which it is a little bit glamorous, but this this love, what I think is one of the hope in humanity, that it will break through what is in human heart, which is about the sixth ray, that it is so looking this ideal world, that if that push makes the rest of the group go forth. So if that dies, I think that then we really would not have any hope for humanity.
It shows you here in the law of repulse of the sixth ray, how the sixth ray recovers. He keeps searching for his dream, his person, his God, etc. Read this, around page 170, 169. Sometimes he gathered in his arms the vision that he saw and found it nothing. Sometimes he reached the person whom he loved and found, instead of vision beauty, a person like himself. And thus he tried. He wearied of his search. He whipped himself to effort new. Now, Master DK has a lot of sixth ray. He's known in the early days as an overzealous master. And the story goes that he got into such zeal that he ran into a door and banged his nose and flattened his nose. And the Master Moria and KH are still joking with him about it. Excessive zeal. So what happens to this poor person who can't find it? The opening dimmed its light. A shutter seemed to close. The vision he had seen no longer shone. The follower stumbled in the dark. And that's the stage that Tui is often talking about, They just think you're the top of the world, and the next day they're carrying the burden of being unsure and rejecting you and trying to throw you off the pedestal they have put you on. Life ended, and the world of thought was lost. Pendant he seemed, hanging there, right? He hung with naught below, before, behind, above. Darkness, to him, naught was. How are you going to get out of that? You can't find your ideal. And now you're in a dark cave. How do you get out of that? And then it's very beautiful. From deep within the temple of his heart, he heard a word. It spoke with clarity and power. Look deep within, around, on every hand. The light is everywhere, within the heart, in me, in all that breathes, in all that is. destroy thy tunnel. See, he's made a tunnel, right? And then nothing outside the tunnel vision. Destroy thy tunnel, which thou hast ages long constructed. Stand free in custody of all the world. The follower answered, he's his follower at first, how shall I break my tunnel down? How shall I find a way? No answer came. I love the way this works out at the end, because it's so familiar to me. Another pilgrim in the dark came up, and groping found the follower. Lead me to the light, he cried. The follower found no words, no indicated leader, no formulas of truth, no forms or ceremonies. He found himself a leader and drew others to the light that shone on every hand. He worked and struggled forward, his hand held others, and for their sake he hid his shame, his fear, his hopelessness, and his despair. He uttered words of surety and faith in life and light and God, in love and understanding. Now we have his tunnel disappeared. He noticed not its loss. Upon the playground of the world, remember, it's green like a golf course. Upon the playground of the world, he stood with many fellow players, wide to the light of day. In the distance stood a mountain blue, and from its summit issued forth a voice which said, come forward to the mountain top, and on its summit learn the invocation of a Savior. To this great task, the follower, now a leader, bent his energies. He still pursues the way. These law of repulse things are fantastic because it shows you the turnaround that we can all go through. Now, there's a lot of people on the sixth ray who haven't reached this yet. The tunnel hasn't closed down on them. The opening is not closed. They're not in the dark cave, and they don't have to look within themselves yet. So this gives you the hint of how you can turn everything around when you're swept by the ancient 2,000-year experience of the sixth ray as your guiding ray. And look, most of the people in DK's group, they've been at least one life, maybe two, he said so, in a monastery, a nunnery, a convent, whatever. They've been there. They have lived the cloistered life. And now, open up, become the broad third ray, the broad second ray. That's what happens.
It seems like he
Wait.
acted as if. What he did
His act as if he didn't allow his, it says, hand for their sake.
Finally, no longer just his search. He learns some altruism. You know, my vision, my path, my. Finally, he learns there's more. Now, I would say that a lot of people in Master DK's work who are on the second ray know quite a bit about this earlier path. That's what I think. Yes, dear.
I was just thinking about Chiron and the energies which are coming by Chiron, that there is going to be that stage, if we call that wound or some happening, that we have to go for the search, and then via searching the master comes out. And I think it's very much about the sixth ray related to Chiron as well. Always this long journey before it is completed.
And one of the things about the sixth and the seventh ray together is they're supposed to be together, because the sixth ray is so up in the air. DK says several lives may be spent. Do you turn your? Several lives may be spent upon the seventh ray to ground the sixth ray person. I think that's interesting, because they need something to anchor them, because of just this kind of. Have you ever seen a sixth ray person in an ecstatic state?
Well,
Something.
Michael, only a person who has been there can manifest that way. Or it's a pity that you didn't have the
Yeah, I know. I probably couldn't reproduce it. Well, I've spent a lot of time in the church. This life is different. I'm supposed to have some brains too. But a lot of us, I know too, a lot of time in the church. I just saw it. And maybe some of you have memories. You look like you have. Yes, Maria Rosa. I think so.
I think we all have been.
And some were, I'm not going to name any names, okay. But some were the Mother Superior. There's a lot of ways to be in a church. And Moria is wonderful. He says, look, don't worship Christ. Imitate him. He says that, I don't know what it was. I used to live out in the country, no library. And along came the bookmobile, chugga, chugga, chugga. And I'm always in a mystic section, looking St. John of the Cross, Thomas à Kempis, whatever, all the old mystics when I was a young person. And then Moria comes along and says, some heroic statement came out of the old cloister, and Thomas à Kempis wrote his book, The Imitation of the Christ. I didn't know how highly Moria respected Thomas à Kempis for saying the imitation of the Christ and not just the worship of the Christ. You can worship till you're blue. You don't have to do a thing to change yourself. But if you're going to imitate, that's different. Let me ask you, is there anybody here in our external, not in the room list? Heike, let's see what it is. A few people have written something down. As now Heike is saying here, you won't see this, but maybe BL or no, BL is not here. My team is asleep on me here. The personality as a presumably sixth-ray personality, she says, and a second-ray soul. About a year ago, I was suddenly confronted with fanatic idealists everywhere. I looked. That can be an experience, huh? It captured me for a while again, and I didn't seem to see a different picture for some weeks until I, quote, woke up from that and had to use my mind to bring new order into this by consciously doing that and rejecting that side of the sixth ray. The sixth ray. Something happened here. That side of the sixth ray influence. Yeah, I really know what you mean. And I had, we are swept by where we've been. For instance, the rays of your previous life. They may be just a little latent, not too much, and all of a sudden you go through an astrological period where that kind of energy is emphasized and it really comes in strong. And it fades out again. I was sitting in a doctor's office waiting for an appointment. And, as usual, whenever I sat down, I would meditate. Or maybe I was a little sleepy. Sometimes it's the same thing. And all of a sudden, I feel a poke in my ribs. So I wake up and I look to my right, and there's this very zealous young woman. You're meditating, aren't you? I saw that. You're meditating, aren't you? Well, what a way to wake up. I mean,
What did you say to her?
I think I said, well, I was just a little tired, and I closed my eyes. I didn't say you're a religious fanatic, get away from me. No, I didn't say that. But the burning eyes, you're meditating. I saw that. Well, right there, you know what I mean? This is the sixth ray hating the second ray. And I was committing a sin if I had been like this. Then she would have stayed in her seat. And I would have been okay. Everybody else would have thought I was nuts. But instead, I was just there like this. But she got me. She caught me. She caught me. It was an experience that's hard to forget when you feel that bony finger poking between your ribs. And you wake up to two fiery eyes that look. And this was 40 years ago or more. It was really interesting. Really interesting. So, yes, when you're surrounded by what do they say? If you lie down with, it's the old saying. If you lie down with pigs, don't expect to come up smelling like roses. I mean, of course, it's a little extreme. But the Buddha says, very simply, keep good company. Or it could rub off on you, and you would lose your progress, right? So I think, Heike, we have had this, many of us have had this experience. Now, let's see. And of course, like you say, we have to restore our consciousness to the level where it has been, because always the past threatens the stability of the present and of the future. And we're seeing that right now. Build the old churches again. Build them all. Don't look outside the Bible. Well, I know what those other books says, but the Bible says this. DK says the Bible is a probationary book. Remember that? It's for aspirants and probationary disciples. It's not a discipleship book per se. You can make discipleship book out of it if you really understand it, what's going on. But it's read by the probationers. And of course, we read it too, because the things that Christ said in the red letter version, where are you going to get that? It's fantastic. But there are other and newer presentations in Elspeth. It astonishes me. Why aren't we more intelligent than our forebearers 2,000 years ago? And she says, we are more intelligent. Why do we pretend like we're not? So in other words, look, just imagine the holiest time to have ever occurred on the earth took place among a bunch of shepherds 2,000 years ago. Does that make sense? Fishermen and shepherds getting started on the first the first initiation path, as good as it is, that's the acme, the top of what we should be looking for in our life. Look at the great revelations of divinity offered by many far more intelligent people than the ones who were writing that. Of course, they had the experience of being with Jesus when he's informed by the Christ. So that counts for a tremendous deal, but look, for 2,000 years, he's going to be with us. And you'll meet him, and you'll be initiated further. And the Master will walk the earth, and Master DK will be here. I don't know about Master KH, he's the Chohan, so they manifest a little more sparingly. Okay? Master R will be all over the place, the way he always is, with his principle of mobility and intelligence that he has. These are times that we're going to live with the hierarchy for about 2,000 years. Are we ready for this? Have we used the opportunity to clean up our act and to get rid of certain tendencies which would only get in the way when we meet such great sources of energy? Master Hilarion, first ray monad, he doesn't mince words. He says, don't step on the electric ladder with muddy shoes. See, what could he mean? The mud freezes you to the ladder because of the electric current, and then you can't make any progress at all. So it's all about cleaning up our act, and even humanity, church and politics, clean it up, and then peace, and then sharing and all that. No, it's clean, share, peace. That's the order in which it probably occurs. Julia, do you want to say anything here?
No.
Okay, I'm looking at the group, Andrea and Anne and Antoinette and Ashen, Cassandra, Catherine, Chris, Chuang, and Elena. I think she says Monagou. Is that how she pronounced it last night? Greece. And we have Heike here, and Joanna, you're here for some reason, and Yohi from Korea, and Julie, and Leslie, and Lynette, and Michael, and Myrna, and Pamela, you're here, and Sholene, and Teresa, and Thubui, and Vera, and Winnie, and Zenaida, and Veronica. Anything from you that you want to write or say about our subject of the incoming seventh ray and how you are adapting to it, approaching it, exercising it. Look, you're either in one stream or another, right, or confused in the middle. I don't expect there's any reactionaries in here. I'll tell you a story about a reactionary. I had a friend. We did operas together, lots of them. He had a Capricorn wife who was a fundamentalist Christian. She thought she'd try a little bit of Alice Bailey just to see what was going on. Because, okay, intelligent person, so forth. But you know how it is when you are conditioned in the south of the North America, it really is the Bible Belt. And the conditioning is incredible. One day I walk into their house and she's staring into the fire. And she's ripping the Alice Bailey books one page at a time, giving each page the flame. I could hardly even talk to her, couldn't even interrupt her. She was in some kind of trance, destroying the devil. What are you going to do? When,
The sixth ray.
but there,
Yeah, it's the pattern of the sixth ray.
yeah, of course, it was obviously a sixth ray. Well, my friend should have known better. He met her when his car crashed into hers. And then they got married and had 4 children. And, like that. Sometimes meetings are unusual. And you just happen to bump into somebody, and that's fate.
Like on the stairways.
What is it?
Like on the stairways.
Sherry? What? Anyway, she was a great lady, and it's so interesting. Her children, utter religious chum, just like that. Absolute, except for the youngest daughter, who writes me about the New Age and writes Heidi about that. You just never know who is susceptible to what stream or the other stream. 3 children out of 4 totally indoctrinated. 1 child daring to say, what's all this about, this other stuff? And showing no sign of being, as her mother was, ripping the pages of Cosmic Fire, one after another. It was scary, when you see how it was done in a ritualistic manner. Rip, burn. Rip, burn. What can I say? One of those memorable moments for me. Okay, so have I given you little time here? And Veronica has something. I definitely had a 6th ray in my equipment, she says. I believe in a previous life. It must have changed to a 2nd ray astral body. I admire that, frankly. In this life, but it's still strong in me. And for a long time, I was afraid of it when it came in. Sorry. When it came in strong. My intelligent mind went away. Have you ever had the experience of losing your head? Literally. I once, when I was a kid at college, I got so angry that I had the feeling of my head detaching from my body. It was the only time I really lost my head. Literally. There was no head. It fortunately came back together. Okay. I was afraid of it when it came strong, and my intelligent mind went away. I learned to appreciate it it's a warrior ray. When ruled by Mars and when ruled by Neptune, it's not so much a warrior ray, it's more a transcendental ray. Someone told me, a seventh ray personality, told me that she was, I guess, but I'm not sure. I certainly teach in order and meticulously, and I don't leave anything out. But as you say, second ray, meticulous entirety. And if there's fifth ray there too, you would want to include every possible point until your audience is very close to death. It can happen. Wait, am I fortunate that I have these on and cannot hear Elena? So yes, look, and Veronica, the thing is here, look, we can spend a long time trying to determine our rays, and we don't necessarily have Master DK ready at this time to tell us what's really going on. I remember when I went to work at the arcane school, I drove everybody crazy searching for my rays. Then I got on the subway one day going from, it was called the Path, Port Authority Transit something, from the World Trade Center, which now is no more, into New York City. And here in front of me is a guy wearing a t-shirt. And on the t-shirt are the following letters and numbers. UR6MR. Thank you. I can never forget that. Now, Andrea asks, may I ask what are the main characteristics of a sixth-ray mind? Well, rarity. Rarity. You might have a sixth sub-ray on your mind, very focused, idealistic, and non-deviating. But a sixth-ray mind, no. Catholic Church and the Buddha, that's all he ever mentions. What are the main characteristics of a sixth-ray mind? Sixth-ray astral body and sixth-ray physical body. Andrea, I'm going to recommend you pick up my book on Tapestry of the Gods. It's on the Makara website. You can download it free, and all that stuff that you may want to know about will be there in plenty of description. But let's just say, sometimes I look at this second ray and the sixth ray approach with the emotions, from the preacher to the teacher. Okay? We all know the difference, right? The second ray teacher the six-ray preacher. Six-ray physical body, very rare. Only a few. Maybe you might be a little spongy or not. All right, now everyone around me is doing this, but since my knowledge of symbolism is so weak, I just don't know what they're talking about. Okay, we'll come back later. What time, Tuya?
Well, we should be coming in 1 hour.
You're kidding.
No, I don't.
Okay, I tell you what.
Because it's already 1 o'clock here.
We'll come back in an hour and a half. An hour and a half. Not 1 hour, but an hour and a half to discuss your role within the new group of world servers. Okay? So that will mean it will be here 2:30, and in London it will be 10:30, no 2:30, 12:30 in the afternoon in London. Okay? We'll see you. Thank you. Good. Have a nice lunch or whatever you're going to do. Think about it, your role in the new group of world servers. Why, obviously, to lead and direct it.
So I would say that 2 o'clock, or 10 past 2, I come here and 3 people I will deal with them. Past 2. 3 of you. Because maybe those who are leaving early in the morning, we have theirs. Yeah. And the lunch, just having